rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Oh my gosh, talk about up and down today. You had the whole, well, we discussed it a little bit last night in terms of the continuing resolution that was more of an omnibus bill than an actual continuing resolution. Well, that got shot down originally, and the House of Representatives went back to the table, recrafted it, and rewrote it, took out a few things that everybody was objecting to, and turned it into a more palatable actual continuing resolution. And the House just shot it down unanimously. First vote. So it's back to the drawing board. And to be honest, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Shutting down government is not necessarily a bad thing. Contrary to what the leftists and the mainstream media tell you, it's happened before. Trust me, I was in the military once when the government shut down. And yes, did it suck? Absolutely. But it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. It's not the end of the world. And so, if that's what it takes for these people to understand, and by these people, I'm talking about the Congress, okay, and our elected representatives who no longer seem to represent the American people anymore for the most part. Some do, but not all. So anyway, I'm just, if it happens, it happens. There's no two ways about it. They're just going to have to do something, and it sucks. I know for, roughly 900,000 people or whatever it is. But unfortunately, that's what happens when you work for the government. And also, believe it or not, it's also the same kind of philosophy that I have working for some unions as well, because they tend to strike at the drop of a hat. And so you kind of got to expect it, coming out. Anyway, all right, well, let's get things back on track and back on target here. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led by our very own Buddy Weiser over on Rumble. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Buddy as he leads us in recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I hereby pledge my allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which she stands, one nation under one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all her citizens. So help me God.
Well, thank you, Buddy, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. And if you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge heard here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge, and then take that file, audio, video, whatever it is, send it off to me. Send it via email by the to box. Send it off to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online, and you can get into the rotation and be heard leading us in the pledge on here on the program. Oh, my chat is talking about ding-dongs. I love ding-dongs. Anyway, or at least I used to when I was a kid. I could probably eat a couple of them now, but I gotta watch what I'm doing here. This is Christmas anyway. The Christmas season where all kinds of goodies are out. There's fudge, there's cookies, there's pies. Oh, just making me hungry thinking about it. Anyway. All right, tonight's promo is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content, to learn about our historical founding, and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Like 3 Chevy says, all amendments are in ascending numerical order. Take a look at this wonderful thing. It's an 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are tear and water resistant. And check out that binding. No cheap glue here, folks. It's stitched all the way through the leather and the pages contained within. It has got a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship defects, such that if something goes wrong with it, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved. And my youngest whiskey warrior has ensured that the information contained within will help you study for your civics badge in Scouts. Probably also your civics exam, if you are a alien looking to become naturalized. That's right. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online to get yours today. And do me a favor, while you are there to pick up your Constitution, go and check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's wonderful offerings. Go and check them out today. All right. Oh, let's see here. Oh, first up on the program, this is actually some really good news, although not unexpected, because again, folks, don't forget, all right, I called it right here on the program. Not that I'm patting myself on the back, because that would be ludicrous. A lot of people actually called it. People who are in the know, people who are smart, people who are savvy with what's going on knew that this was going to occur. Essentially, okay, what we have here is the Georgia Appeals Court disqualifies Fani Willis from the Trump election case. They said basically that they conclude that Judge McAfee erred by failing to disqualify DA Willis and her office. Yep. Now we know why they took that hearing schedule off the calendar. You remember we talked about that about a week or so ago. And now we know why. The reason why is because they were just going to disqualify her outright. She's gone. And because of the fact that the powers for her assistant DAs derive from her and her office, that means the entire office is barred and disqualified because of her actions. Holy crap, folks. That means that everybody is gone. They don't even have to worry about it anymore. Well, actually, I take that back. They do, because it's no doubt that Fannie Willis, whatever her freaking name is, however it's pronounced, will likely appeal it to the Georgia Supreme Court. Because again, keep in mind, this is just the Georgia Appeals Court. So they have one more step to go in the state to get to the top court in the state land. And it's possible that it's going to go and get appealed up there. But anyway, the majority of the appeals court wrote in its decision, after carefully considering the trial court's findings in its order, we conclude that it erred by failing to disqualify D.A. Willis and her office. The court added that a remedy crafted by the trial court to prevent an ongoing appearance of impropriety did nothing to address the appearance of impropriety that existed at times when D.A. Willis was exercising her broad pretrial discretion about who to prosecute and what charges to bring. So, for those of you that don't really remember, is that earlier this year, Trump co-defendant Michael Roman alleged in court papers that Willis and Wade were in a romantic relationship. During the court hearing, weeks later, both Wade and Willis admitted to being romantically involved, although the pair denied allegations that either of them financially benefited from the arrangement, which is a bunch of crap because we know that they went on cruises, they went on special vacation trips, all of that because Wade was being paid an exorbitant amount of money, considering that he had literally zero experience in something like this. We also found out during that same hearing with regards to the situation that Wade actually took a trip to the White House to confer with January 6 committee members and other White House staffers in order to get information and possibly figure out how this whole thing fits. So there was some evidence of potential collusion there with the White House and the Biden administration. So all of this stuff is now tossed because of this. In rendering the decision to allow Willis to stay on the case, Fulton County Judge Scott McAfee wrote that there was still an odor of mendacity persisted in light of the allegations against the district attorney and Wade. Now, McAfee admonished Willis originally for unprofessional manner in how she conducted herself during the evidentiary hearing and showing a lapse of judgment. He also chided her for what he described as racially charged statements she made at a church in Atlanta after Roman made the allegations against her. However, he said that he was not able to conclusively establish that there was a conflict of interest. However, yeah, the appeals court said, yeah, that wasn't right. And so they said she is done. She's disqualified. She's off the case. And since she's off the case and her office is off the case, unless the Supreme Court decides that she can get back on the case, this sort of effectively ends this trial. Now, you'll recall this was one of a couple different cases that were happening at the state level that were leveraged against Trump. And so this is one of the two or three. Yeah, because, there's three of them. Two of them were with regards to him being president and, you know, some of the things that he did while president. The other one was a civil trial about his tax thing, and that one's still going on and going to get appealed and so on and so forth. But anyway, so yep, this is gone. So the ruling now means that the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia will have to find another prosecutor to take over the case and then, of course, decide whether or not to pursue it, though that itself could be delayed if Willis appeals up to the higher courts, which she probably will. And it appears unlikely that even if they do get a new prosecutor, that any kind of prosecution against Trump will continue to be as he prepares to be president for the next 4 years. Now, the other 14 defendants still face some charges But anyway, so yeah, just now, just as a reminder, by the way, Mershon said that he is not going to throw out Trump's conviction in May on the case alleging the 34 counts of falsifying business records, although the future of that case is also still uncertain. So there you go. What interesting times we live in. Anyway, all right. Well, an update really quick on that drone stuff that's been going on. The Epic Times writes, FAA issues a temporary flight ban on drones in areas across New Jersey. Now, keep in mind, if these were legitimate drones that were following the rules by the FAA, then this essentially should make them stop. But if they are foreign adversaries who don't really care about FAA rules, which they obviously don't because they were shutting off their lights and things like that when they were being approached and those kinds of things. Yeah. I think that it may or may not, it depends on the result of this, may or may not put to rest the fears of everybody with regards to these things. Now, some other news outlets have been reporting that there have been several military installations that are now getting in on the drone scenarios where they're now reporting that they themselves have been visited, let's say, by drones, and that those drones that they are being visited by appear, according to the articles that I've read, not necessarily this one, but some of the articles that I've read, appear to be in showing up over military installations that just by coincidence happen to have property owned by the Chinese very close by. So yeah, there is no doubt that the Chinese are using any kind of technology in order to come and take a look and spy on us, to try and figure out what our weaknesses are and, you know, analyze us and everything else about it. You know, that's all what they are doing. And in fact, that brings us to my next story, which is, kind of, well, I mean, it's no surprise. Anybody that recalls about, I don't know, probably about a year ago, half a year ago, you know, somewhere in there. All right. We were talking about the, oh shoot, now I just forgot the name of the company. But anyway, there was a company that was a Chinese company that the government banned the use of, cell phones and things like that. I can't remember the name of it. It just like flew in, flew out. Maybe if I take a drink, it might help me. Hold on. Yeah, it didn't help. Anyway, the whole cellular company that was going, the Chinese cellular company that was going and building towers and things like that next to the interesting. Next to the bases and things like that. Well, now we have yet another. I mean, TikTok, of course, is a Chinese spy app. We all know that. Well, now we have another spy situation here in the New York Post. For those of you that use Chinese-made TP-Link routers. Now, those are a consumer-based router. Okay. They're a consumer-based router that a lot of people have used. They're cheap. You can buy them on Amazon for fairly inexpensive. In fact, the article even points out that they are, you know, like way lower in comparison to some of the other ones that are out there. But apparently, the Chinese-made home internet routers have a potential link to cyber attacks, and that they pose a national security risk. Okay? And TP-Link, which is the manufacturer of high-speed cable modems, routers, range extenders, smart home devices, has a roughly 65% market share in the United States and is now the subject of several investigations being overseen by a number of different federal agencies, according to the Wall Street Journal. The Departments of Commerce, Defense, and Justice have all opened probes into the company. People familiar with the matter told the Journal. And a ban of TP-Link products could come sometime next year after President Donald Trump takes office. A division of the Commerce Department has even gone so far as to issue a subpoena to TP-Link, according to the report. Now, the funny thing is, TP-Link apparently is being used. How this happened, I have no idea. But TP-Link, I understand the home commercial market because, you know, people go out and they buy these routers online at Amazon and you know, any other place. But apparently the Defense Department and other federal agencies are also using these things. Well, according to the piece here in the New York Post, the company has won market dominance partly through lower prices, as its routers are cheaper than the competitors, often more than half, according to market data. So the report alleged that Chinese-based cyber criminals used routers made by TP-Link to launch ransomware and other cyber attacks across the globe. U.S. government investigators believe that TP-Link routinely fails to address vulnerabilities in its products that are shipped to customers who use the routers for both home and business purposes, according to the Journal. Now, look, I work in IT in my regular job, okay? And I can tell you that most home-based users are either not savvy enough to go and try and make sure that they upgrade firmware on these things, or they don't know that they can upgrade the firmware on these things. And literally, they have whatever firmware is shipped out to them. So even if TP-Link was updating and sending out brand new firmware, most of them don't have an automatic firmware update process. And so it's a manual process done by the homeowner or the operator of the device. This is nothing unusual. This is actually nothing unusual. The problem here, though, is that also, too, the standard as shipped usernames and passwords are often not changed either, the defaults, because nobody bothers to do that. I mean, most of the routers and documents that I've seen, directions, have all said, hey, it's recommended that you change the password, but oftentimes people don't, because they don't even think about doing it. It's no different than using, password 123 as your password. I mean, seriously? Or even password as password. How often do you see that in situations? And nobody pays attention to these routers and the fact that the routers can actually give you a literal gateway into your network. But the part that I'm really kind of surprised about here is that the government is using these things. Why would the government be using these things? I mean, yes, I understand they're cheap, but really? I mean, government, and believe me, because I've worked with the government before, most of the government has much higher security protocols and processes that are supposed to avoid stuff like this. I mean, it's anyway. So apparently hackers are able to exploit the vulnerabilities that are, not fixed to carry out ransomware attacks and other cyber crimes, according to the alleged report. And when cybersecurity experts point out the flaws in these TP-Link routers, the company itself declines to engage with them, according to the journal. So TP-Link has its headquarters in Shenzhen, China, while maintaining a legal office based in California. An office spokeswoman told the journal, "We welcome any opportunities to engage with the U.S. government to demonstrate that our security practices are fully in line with industry security standards and to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to the U.S. market, U.S. consumers, and addressing U.S. national security risks." The Post itself reached out to the TP-Link office. So anyway, yeah. And now, by the way, that the federal government is set to initiate a trade investigation into Chinese semiconductors. Remember what I was telling you about Taiwan and China? Chinese semiconductors, they've actually found, in some cases, they found like malware embedded in the chip itself coming from China. I mean, this is kind of how China goes and watches. They watch their own people, folks. They watch their own people. Anyway, this is nothing unusual. We are so dependent upon Chinese products that it's not even funny. As far as that goes. Oh, Mark over on Facebook's trying to be a little smart aleck. Can we run out of Wi-Fi? I don't know. Can we? Anyway. Folks, I'm telling you, as a general practice, one of your biggest things that you can do, number one, is make sure that you change the default passwords. Change the default passwords. If you can change the default username and password, both, do that. And then, of course, when it comes to the firmware, make sure that you update whenever you can. Those are like two big practices. But even then, I mean, that doesn't necessarily resolve the situation 100%, but at least it starts restricting your exposure and your attack vector is what they call it in the biz. Anyway. Well, it looks like America has kicked off a movement, I guess is the best way to say it. Around the world. Yes, that's right. America, by voting in Trump and Trump's actions and Trump's approval ratings, which, by the way, I didn't put this article in, but apparently his approval ratings are starting to go up, and he's not even in office yet. At the same time that he's probably going to leave office as like the lowest approval ratings in history. But anyway, the Daily Caller has a nice little piece where it talks about things going bad to worse for the world's most powerful liberal, read that as a leftist elites. So here in the article, and I really want to highlight this because this is so true, and thankfully it's occurring across the globe. Liberal governments across the world are slowly falling apart as the same issues that got President Donald Trump elected are propelling the right globally. So, Canada, Germany, France, and several other liberal governments have faced popular backlash with issues like inflation, unchecked immigration, distrust of their ruling classes, fueling Conservative Party victories, according to multiple sources. All right. Moreover, the grievances expressed in the nations seemingly mirror those that propelled Trump to his 2024 election victory. In Canada, in particular, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's popularity has taken a hit, with only 28% of Canadians approving of his job performance, according to the research nonprofit Angus Reid Institute. Additionally, Canadian Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland resigned from her cabinet post on Monday, due in part to a dispute that Trudeau had with Trump over tariffs, according to the Associated Press. Over 70% of Canadians say that the cost of living is the most important issue facing them. Oh, gee, does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? While 33% of Canadians listed the economy and 27% said immigration were the most pressing issues, according to Abacus data in July. Under Trudeau, just like here, the cost of groceries increased by 21.4% from April 2021 to 2024, according to Statistics Canada. So, gee, I guess the world, mostly the Western world, has essentially decided that they don't like leftism and leftist ideology and these progressive pushes to try and do things like tax the crap out of things, create more money, i.e. inflation, causing things to cost more, and what's even better yet is they don't like the open borders policies either. See, economic issues, according to the piece, propelled Trump to victory, as it did for many right-leaning parties globally, with 90% of U.S. voters saying prior to the election it was important to their vote, according to a Gallup poll that was released in October. Additionally, 72% of U.S. voters said immigration was important when deciding which candidate to support. In Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who is from the left-wing Socialist Democrat Party, lost a vote of confidence just this past Monday, which increases the chances of triggering an early election in February, according to the Associated Press. A coalition of parties led by Friedrich Merz of the center-right Christian Democratic Union is currently leading Scholz in polling by a healthy margin. Folks, this is, and of course, just further down here, immigration and refugee policy is a top issue for Germans, with 77% saying the country needed a fundamentally different asylum and refugee policy so that fewer people come to us, according to Deutsche Welle in September. Germany has almost 3.5 million refugees within its borders, which is a new all-time high, according to Deutsche Welle in September. 1/3 of all those refugees came from Ukraine due to the war. Germans are also facing energy issues, with the country shutting off its last 3 nuclear power plants in April of 2023, according to Clean Energy Wire. Do you folks not see, okay, that the left and leftism and leftist policies, they're taking a major hit across the Western world? And it started here in the United States. It started here in the United States. We are the beacon of light for the rest of the world to follow. And this is why it is extremely important, by the way, that we get it right, because the entire world is looking at America to be that lighthouse in the darkness. And when we let that light fade, and if we ever let that light go out, we are no longer going to recognize not just this country, but the world. We're no longer going to recognize the world. Now, France, too. France also faces trouble as it struggles to pass a budget bill amid massive deficit spending the previous year, according to the New York Times. Centrist Francois Bayrou was appointed new prime minister on Friday after his predecessor was forced out on December 4th with a vote of no confidence, signaling the effective collapse of the coalition government that formed after snap elections in the summer. Leftism is dying, people. We're winning. We're winning. And this is something to essentially celebrate as far as that goes. But unfortunately, here in the States, we still have to deal with Joe Biden and his leftist, Marxist, moron administration. More on that in just a second. Let me take a wet my whistle. Makes my voice dry when I'm speaking. We have to deal with Biden because of the fact that Biden puts out reports that are blasted, of course, by energy industry leaders. For an example, what he just did here in Fox News, wrong-headed. Energy industry leaders blast Biden admin report on natural gas exports. These industry leaders say that the report is a politically motivated document designed to appeal to the environmentalist left, according to one person's evaluation. So this report that came out was mainly about the idea that if the president's moratorium on liquefied natural gas, known as LNG, that liquefied natural gas exports, if that moratorium is lifted by the Donald Trump administration, that U.S. energy prices could potentially climb as much as 30% in the coming years and also contribute to carbon emissions. Well, that report didn't take long for the reality and the truth. And see, this is part of the reason why the mainstream media is dying. The mainstream media is failing here. They no longer have the grasp of the truth anymore. It's people like Elon Musk in purchasing X and startups such as Rumble that are leading the way in making sure that the truth and the opposition voices, and this is part of the reason why they were so enamored with this idea of censorship not too long ago. They still are. But thankfully, people like Elon and Chris Pavlowski of Rumble, they are pushing back on all of this. And so this is why podcasters and independent creators and independent journalists are now becoming the mainstream, and that the mainstream media is becoming the fringe because of the fact that people are figuring out that the mainstream media is lying and propagandizing for, in this particular case, the Democrats. Now, all of this study and everything else, there's a bunch in here, but industry groups, this is the biggest part of the piece, okay? Industry groups have pushed back on the assertion that LNG exports beyond currently authorized levels could cause as much as 1.5 gigatons of CO2 equivalent emissions into the atmosphere by 2050, or roughly 25% of the nation's annual greenhouse gas emissions. Now, that was in the report. Okay. But industry groups have pushed back on that. One senior industry official told Fox News Digital that this data set models for a scenario that assumes a growth in LNG exports does not substitute any other forms of energy consumption, such as coal. In reality, this individual noted, LNG is expected to offset emissions from coal use in the EU and elsewhere by as much as 50 to 60%, according to estimates from the International Energy Agency. In other words, as LNG becomes more popular, it offsets its CO2 use by lowering the emissions because it's a cleaner emitting natural fuel than what coal is. So as LNG replaces coal, which is dirtier in certain places, it actually benefits the environment. Rather than raising the CO2 levels, it helps to lower the CO2 levels. And see, it's stuff like this that the Biden administration and any of these climate change crazies don't want you to know. Now, while the analysis found that increasing exports would result in roughly a 0.2% rise in the U.S. GDP, Energy Department officials told reporters on Tuesday that the increase in GDP does not necessarily correlate with a positive effect on broader public and consumer welfare. In a statement released alongside the report, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm noted that increasing LNG exports would generate wealth for the owners of export facilities and create jobs across the natural gas supply chain. But she also suggested that the domestic price of natural gas would increase. So, further here, down in the piece, is the National Association of Manufacturers CEO and President Jay Timmons said in a statement that today's report from Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm is clearly a politically motivated document designed for an audience who believes no form of carbon-based energy is acceptable. LNG exports play a crucial role in reducing emissions by providing cleaner energy alternatives to countries reliant on higher emission sources, such as coal, for an example. Okay. For its part, NAM also conducted a study on the ban that found that nearly 1 million jobs would be threatened by the LNG pause for over the next 2 decades if the restriction remains in place. Okay. American Natural Gas Association CEO and President Karen Harbert described the report as a clear and inexplicable attempt to justify their grave policy error. She said in a statement, America's allies are suffering from the weaponization of natural gas and energy deprivation, and any limitations on supplying life-essential energy is absolutely wrong-headed. The Biden administration's pause on American LNG exports was a mistake that resulted in uncertainty for the market, for investors, and for America's allies around the world. So even the, by the way, even the environmental group Food and Water Watch, which is a left-wing environmental group, or left-wing group, also slammed the Biden administration for the weak report, meaning they think that Biden didn't go far enough, or the administration didn't go far enough. Yeah. So, anyway. He's still trying to mess with us, Joe Biden, and he's going to continue to try to mess with us. Joe Biden is. In fact, Joe Biden is still trying to mess up everything that's going on, even for the next administration as much as he can, by even doing something like this. According to Front Page, the Biden administration rushes out a rule to make it easier for foreign workers to take American jobs. Really? So the latest move involves H-1B foreign visas used by tech companies, okay, and others to insource and then outsource labor, bringing foreign workers to America who work cheaply and then take those skills to China or to replace American workers here. The H-1B visas have been a sore point for a lot of Americans. The Biden administration, of course, is trying to set policy on the way out the door. So the U.S. Department of Homeland Security today announced a new final H-1B rule aimed at streamlining the approvals process as well as other approvals. So they said, quote, American businesses rely on the H-1B visa program for the recruitment of highly skilled talent, benefiting communities across the country. Alejandro Mayorkas said in the statement, these improvements to the program provide employers with greater flexibility to hire global talent, boost our economic competitiveness, and allow highly skilled workers to continue to advance American innovation. Yeah. So what this actually does is streamline the pipeline to turn foreign students into H-1B workers and will make it difficult for the new administration to block approval of H-1B renewals. Yep. So there you go. Still working on it. Still trying to get rid of American workers. Speaking of American workers, did you guys know that Social Security's full retirement age is going to increase again in 2025? Do you know that? I mean, granted, I'm getting closer, but I'm not quite there yet. However, you know, the whole Social Security and Medicare kind of thing has been talked about by many people. Also, I've talked about it here on the program in multiple cases, but the situation here is the fact that Social Security has actually been increasing, gradually rising, and it's based on a reform law that happened back in 1983. Now, of course, lefties are going to blame Reagan once this really hits and gets into people's thing. But 1983 was the Democrats were in charge. That's when Joe Biden and his Democrat cohorts started taxing. They started taxing Social Security. So don't sit here and tell me that the Democrats are shall we say, blameless with this particular situation. But apparently Social Security is starting to rise and has gradually been rising based on a reform law. Now, check how sneaky this crap is. So Social Security's full retirement age is set to increase in 2025, meaning that those nearing retirement will have to hold off a little longer before they can actually claim a larger benefit. The full retirement age, known as FRA, for Social Security was 65 when the program was created in the 1930s. But reforms made in 1983 has gradually increased the FRA from 65 to 67 in essentially 2-month increments over a 22-year period that started for those who turned 62 in 2000. So next year, the FRA is going to rise to 66 years and 10 months for people who were born in 1959. They would start to qualify for their full Social Security benefits starting in November of 2025. Retirees can begin collecting their Social Security benefits before they reach the FRA, with the minimum age to do so being 62. However, retirees who claim early will have their monthly benefit permanently reduced by as much as 30%, depending upon how early they claim. Americans can also delay claiming Social Security benefits and be rewarded for doing so, as the program offers a bonus of up to 8% for waiting until the age when they're eligible to receive the maximum benefit. The increase in the FRA coming in 2025 is the next to last age change that will occur under the Social Security reform law that was enacted in 1983. Although that could change with, different reforms, by the way. The final change, of course, will apply to workers born in or after 1960 and will require that those workers wait until they turn 67 to achieve FRA, meaning that a worker born in 1960 would have to wait to claim benefits until they reach their birth month in 2027 to get their full benefits. Yeah. So, and of course that goes, continuing, so on and so forth. Anyway. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not quite at that level yet, and I've already pretty much decided I'm going to be working until I'm freaking dead. So, because I don't have the confidence that Social Security is actually going to be around by the time I go to retire. And in fact, right now, I mean, based on current estimates, with nothing being done to the program, it's going to go insolvent by 2036. And I'm not quite 10 years out. In fact, I'm not even close to being 10 years out. I've still got another, 67. I'm looking at probably about 15 years before I'm really going to retire. So, yeah. Something's got to be done about it. I mean, let's just face facts here, okay? Something must be done about Social Security, okay? And it's got to work. I mean, you got to get it figured out, all right? So anyway, yeah. Something's got to get figured out with that. Now, granted, of course, as I am a strict constitutionalist, I will admit that the Social Security program is not a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government. Therefore, I do understand that if the program does get cut, I get where it's coming from. However, what I think they should do, and this has been discussed, but what I think they should do is anybody who is either already on Social Security, just stay on it. Anyone who is of an age, let's just say 55 and younger, gets back a lump sum payment of whatever you've paid into it. Okay, so you can take that money and do whatever you want with it. At that point, you can either invest it in your 401k or whatever, and all of that should, by the way, be tax-free. And then anyone between the ages of 55 and retirement age or taking Social Security should get the opportunity to decide whether or not they want to stay in the program or take the lump sum. Either way. So, there you go. That's my thought. And granted, I haven't really given it a lot of thought because, let's face it, when you're younger, you don't think about retirement. And as I've already told you, I'm expecting to working for the rest of my life. So there you go. All right. Well, I know I've just given you a list or a series of kind of bad news, I guess. But now I just want to show you this is fantastic. This is fantastic. I love this. We're getting pushback. Let me rephrase that. We're giving pushback. We're giving pushback, and it's not just the Western world pushing back on leftism. The Western world is doing that, but the idea of things such as pronouns. Okay? Pronouns. Like, you have to put pronouns in your bio. I would have to look at you and say, hey, by the way, I am a he, him. Yeah, no, none of that stuff really works. Well, what's really cool about this is check this article out in the Daily Wire. This is fantastic. I would love to see this start to go everywhere. I doubt it will, but this would be fantastic. This is an exclusive from the Daily Wire, all right? Ohio School District is going to pay $450,000 to a teacher who was fired for not using a trans student's pronouns. So an Ohio school district is going to pay nearly $500,000 to this teacher because she was forced to resign after she said that she could not use the trans identifying students' new names and pronouns due to her Christian faith. Okay. English teacher Vivian Garrity, 26, won a $450,000 settlement from the Jackson local school district, her legal team announced just yesterday. She will not be returning to unceremoniously fired by the Jackson Memorial Middle School when two students asked her to use new names that aligned with their gender identities rather than their legal names. One of the students also requested that teachers use a preferred pronoun that did not reflect the student's biological sex. Well, the teacher went to the principal in the hopes of reaching a solution, but the principal and even his superior, the director of curriculum instruction and assessment, told her that she would be required to put her beliefs aside as a public student or servant, according to the lawsuit. She was allegedly accused of insubordination and was told that continuing to teach without participating in the students' gender transitions would not work in a district like Jackson. She was informed that if she decided to not participate, she must resign immediately. Yeah. She said that she attempted to tell the principal that forcing her to resign was a violation of her right to free speech, but the principal repeated that as a public servant, she must set her religious convictions aside or resign. The principal's superior then handed her a laptop and told her to draft her letter of resignation immediately, the lawsuit said. So her legal team at Alliance Defending Freedom said in a press release that her sincerely held religious beliefs and scientific understanding govern her view that a person is male or female based on sex, not personal identity, and participating in a student's social transition violates those beliefs by forcing her to communicate messages she believes are untrue and harmful to the student. Her and her legal team celebrated the settlement victory on Wednesday. The Alliance Defending Freedom's legal counsel, Logan Spina, said in a statement, no school official can force a teacher to set her religious beliefs aside in order to keep her job. Yeah. And of course, they continued with the First Amendment prohibits that abuse of power, and Jackson local school district officials have learned that step comes at a steep cost. So, there you go. It was an unconstitutional demand. She's not the only one, by the way, according to the piece here. In September, there was a high school French teacher, Peter Vlaming, won a $575,000 settlement from the West Point School Board in Virginia. Vlaming had been fired for avoiding using pronouns to refer to one of the trans-identifying students. The school district also changed its policies. So, folks, we're making some great gains in the culture wars, people. We are. That's what's happening. And we got to keep making those strides. We've got to keep moving forward. We've got to keep pressing on to make things back to normal again. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. Once you are signed in or signed up and signed in, take a I'm sorry, Bam's been at UPS for the last 30 minutes. I'm sorry. But anyway, take take a moment to search up the American Perspective channel. And once you do, hit that green follow button to make sure you get notified every time I go live. Also, too, go around and make sure you hit all of those thumbs up and like buttons across the board, whether it's X, Facebook, YouTube, and the aforementioned Rumble. I do appreciate that. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.